I see this is his chest coming down. He's got this little bit of a pocket shadow coming in here. There's a little bit of a shadow on this folded arm. There's a shadow on the pocket here, shadow there. So I'm just essentially going to come back in and hit these shadow shapes. And I'm going to use sort of this purpley color I used in the background. I'm just going to use the blue, a little alizarin crimson, maybe even a little warm red here, just so I pick up a little warmth of the fabric. It isn't such a harsh tone. So I'm going to come in here like this, pick up these wrinkles, work up into here. So the essential thing is that I get the good shape of these wrinkles so that they read properly. And wherever I see a soft edge, then before it dries, I'm just going to soften the edge so that the wrinkles look like the wrinkles. There are places where wrinkles catch a crisp edge, and there are other places where they do not. And this is where, just if you drafted these things in right, they'll read pretty good, they'll read well. If you go to paint them, they'll stack up properly as a part of the fabric. And that's all I'm trying to do, is just suggest how the lighting is hitting this figure. That's another reason why, as I mentioned earlier, why I chose this photograph, is the lighting is really strong. So it's kind of interesting. It's an interesting play of light and shadow on the figure. And that's the idea here, is to get this sense of this lighting. I'm sure he posed for this photograph, and the photographer who took it knew what he was doing and lit him dramatically so as to create this. I'm sure this was his soldier's portrait, looking very determined and purposeful. Cooling this down a little bit in here. There's some stuff up in here, a couple little things going on there. There's a nice shadow coming underneath this button. And then where it sticks out, there's a little shadow there too. And again, I'm going to move on this fairly quickly because I don't, I don't want to get too much detail in here. Just enough to suggest the wrinkles on his uniform and sort of this canvas stuff. Here we got a nice wrinkle coming up here. Just simple stroke, just get that in there, and then it fades, and then it continues back here a little bit. I am getting as I'm seeing it now, I'm getting sort of this dark shadow underneath where the collar rides above the uniform, casts a shadow there. So you look for those little things too. A lot of this stuff comes as you just study it. You get most of it in your drawing, but as you go, you start to see little details that you might have missed the first time. So I'm going to have a little fun with this one. I'm going to paint it a little cooler down here as it comes up against the pocket. Sort of a purpley blue, a little bit of pink in it. And then as it comes up here, I'm going to change it, get a little warmth into it, just to change it, just so that this wrinkle has these bouncing around colors in there. This is kind of fun. And then back to this sort of a purpley tone up in here as it fades up into his uniform. This is all in shadow back here. And these wrinkles up in here, it's kind of crisp there, then they soften out as they roll on up. So here's where I'm just going to soften the edge a little bit so these wrinkles aren't so crisp and prominent in that region. Dark up here. Okay. Collecting some dark shadows right in here. And these are going to come down here like so. And again, I'm just studying where the shadows fall and try to discern, you know, whether they have a crisp edge where the folds are creased, and where they go into a warm, or more of a rounded shape. So as I put these in, I can see where they hold the edge. And here, for instance, this is a rounding form. So I'm just going to soften up in here. So I get this feeling of, you know, scrunched folds in a uniform. So some of the edges are hard and some of the edges are soft. These are soft right in here, because it's where the fabric rolls over. Where it's pinched, this is where you start to see the comes in. There's a nice pinched fold right there. More drawing classes you take, especially clothed figure drawings, you'll start to see they really work with you on that, as learning to see how drapery folds over something, you know. And so that's always just good studies to have. You know, the more you study anything, the more it makes sense. You know, it's just when you first see it, it goes, oh my God, how do I paint that? And it's just taking the time to see what's going on. Folds in fabric, that's all this is. Okay, so we've got the pocket here. The pocket has this little crisp edge that comes out here. That's all this is. Same idea. And it hits right up against the sleeve there. So I'm just going to put that in. And it's catching what I call some bounce back light. So that simply means I'm going to bring in a little bit of yellow ochre, kind of bouncing back into this into this section of the pocket. And then I'm going to soften this edge because it's turning. So you're getting a lot of edge work in here, which is fine. Good to have that. Okay, so I've got that. And as I'm looking at it, I'm seeing just a little bit of how his sleeve comes in here like that. Holds that edge, so a little tune up there, that's good. All right. Some areas, here's where his button comes down. I'm seeing just a little edge of the fabric there. Where's shirt buttons up. And I'm alternating between kind of these cool shadows with a little bit of warmth up in there. So my next shadow is right in here up against, this is kind of an important one, because what it does is it holds the edge of this pocket that's catching light. So I want to make sure I get this shadow in here. And I can alternate a little bit. What I'm playing with here is just this alternation between warm and cool. So I'm seeing that essentially as a shadow turns into form, it goes cooler, and then there's other places where there's a little bit of bouncing light going on in there. So I try to get a little change happening in the shadow. And there's a little more shadow coming under here. And then we get this big shadow under the pocket. And that's going to be this guy here. There's a little place where there's a fold. Again, this is a little detail I didn't see earlier. But essentially you're getting this whole pocket goes into shadow. Now, as it sticks out further, it's catching more bounce around light from the various other parts of the painting. So, and as it turns in this way towards the arm, it starts to get cooler. So this is, again, a signal for me to come back in and use more of my cool pigments, which are my blues. So as I come in here, I might pick up, kind of fun to pick up a little of this cerulean again and get it kind of cooler up under here where the shadows get darker and tighter